We are back with another episode of When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a podcast about censorship and the arts. My name is Todd Sullivan. Standing by the wall over there is my co-host Peter Raman.
Hello.
And we are finishing today our look at Stephen Chbosky's The Perks of Being a Wallflower. It still has that weird effect.
Yeah. Is that Podbean only?
It is Podbean only. And I don't know, I could probably re-upload the intro and outro music and fix that, but I actually kind of like it.
Yeah.
It signifies that things are a
This
little
is
bit different.
live.
Yeah. I don't hate it.
Yeah.
And it's not in this song, but the other podcast that I used to do, the Half Cut Conspiracies, there was a section in the theme for that right at the very end, it was this section of music that was supposed to be like, originally it was like I don't know, 4 bars or 8 bars or whatever it is. And Oren, who wrote both of the songs for both those podcasts, did something weird, and it ended up being like all of that music, all of those notes ended up being compressed into about 1 second.
Yeah.
And it just sounds like,
Nice.
But when he played it, it was just like, that sounds really cool. And he was like, oh, that was an accident. I was like, well, keep it. It sounds amazing.
That's how some of the best things come about, right?
Exactly.
And so happy accidents.
I kind of like that little fuzzy bit that we have in our live version. And I think there's a fuzzy bit in the outro as well. I don't remember. It's been a while since we did one of these lives.
It has been a while. I feel like we haven't done a live since last year.
That's true. That is
my
true.
lame dad joke.
First live of 2026. First episode of 2026. Episode 90, I believe we are.
Wow.
Which means I feel like there's a pretty good chance that we will finally hit the old 100 before the end of 2026, which is exciting.
Yeah, if we could keep it together, if the world survives for another year, we will be here.
Still a podcast platform out there. We will keep getting
I feel like good news, bad news, certainly going to be no end to censorship this year. So we have material to work with.
Lots to talk about in the year of our Lord, 2026. We've had some pretty good big gaps between episodes lately. I did notice that our last live was in August, so it has been a while, and that was 1984 that we wrapped up then. But yeah, we're wrapping up The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This is a kind of young adult novel about
a little bit of coming of age,
but a coming of age in a particular context.
Yes,
particularly, somebody kind of on the autism spectrum, somebody struggling to make connections,
and also has trauma that's kind of not properly processed.
Struggles with with other people, with making friends, with expressing himself in ways that are
acceptable socially.
Often isn't maybe great with social cues or knowing the right things or ways to say things. And it's a book that gets banned a lot. So it's weird how books that deal with like real things seem to have people that don't like that being out there. Yeah. It's actually, man, I was just looking at a Facebook conversation about one of the local schools here in town that was doing, sex education in, I think it was the 4th or 5th grade they were talking about. And the number of parents who were just like, I pulled my child from that. And
oh, really?
It was kind of alarming. Although I do know, because it wasn't obviously 4th grade, but my kid who's in the 9th grade now did bring home a sign-off sheet. I'm pretty sure the sign-off sheet was the opposite. It wasn't like you have to sign in order for them to be allowed to participate. It
was like an opt-out?
To opt out. But even if you were opting out, you still had to teach the same information. And there would be tests, like your child would be tested to make sure that they learned.
That you're doing it at home kind of thing,
so
or wherever.
It allows parents, I guess, to have that opportunity to address the subjects in the way they want to, but you still have to make sure the education is getting out there. And I think that's, if we have to allow that kind of opt-out to happen, I think that's maybe the best way, or at least a better way to do it. We can't just go and say, like, no, these children don't ever have to learn about the existence of trans people.
Yeah.
Because I think, when it comes to earlier in school sex education, it's not about, like, penis goes in vagina kind of conversations. It's about, like, it's learning about different types of people and learning about
and what's happening
or what will
how
happen.
Things are changing.
I know a big part of it is talking about names of body parts and being able to talk about them, because there's a lot of conversation that I've never even thought of until it came up around how it can be challenging to verify actual things like sexual assault if you're not able to describe it properly.
Yeah.
If you say that, like, my uncle touched my cookie,
whatever,
that's not helpful for dealing with it, legally. Anyway, so the perks of being a wallflower, quite often we do digress, and those things usually get cut from the recorded episodes, but you're going to have to sit through them because we're live. It is one of the more banned and challenged books. I think it was 4th on the list of most banned or challenged between, I want to say, 2011 and 2020.
Something like that.
I think that was the most recent decade that they've covered. Specifically in 2025, it was banned or challenged for being sexually explicit and having LGBTQIA plus content while mentioning rape, drugs, and profanity. And it was one of 419 titles removed from libraries by the Wilson County School District in Tennessee in response to the passage of HB 843.9. Other titles removed include It's Christmas, David, Wacky Wednesday, and The Time Machine, which I guess is the H.G. Wells version.
Yeah.
According to WTVF, the books were removed preemptively to avoid potential scrutiny. What the? Preemptive.
Oh,
Nobody was even complaining about them. And we're just like, well, they might. So let's just get rid of these. Many titles removed were identified through a partisan book rating site. Some were previously reviewed by district committees and found to have educational merit and meet board-approved criteria. 2024, banned or challenged for being sexually explicit and having LGBTQIA plus content while mentioning rape, drugs, and profanity. Again, 2023, it's the same thing. It's always the same line. Banned and challenged for depiction of sexual abuse, LGBTQIA plus content, drug use, profanity, and being sexually explicit.
Yeah, why would we want to arm our kids with any foreknowledge of this stuff?
And every year going back until 2003, which I'm guessing is maybe the publication year.
Yeah. It was very late 90s, early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Publication.
So, this thing gets banned a lot. And it is, I think, compared to some of the books that we've covered, it covers a lot of what you might call controversial subjects.
I mean, there's definitely, again, not like graphic, but there's depictions of, rape and molestation and things like that. The drug use, certainly.
Which is pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Alcohol use.
Which
I think, alcohol and drug use, I think most parents are aware that teenagers are doing. Most parents probably did to some extent themselves, and that's how they know it's happening.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of,
especially high school seniors. I mean, that's no leap there.
But it's a lot of like, oh, because I did this, I'm afraid that my kids are also going to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, fair, I guess, but like, it is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think the better prepared they are to respond to temptations, respond to, offers, respond to peer pressure, and demanding that they stick their head in the sand and not learn about these sorts of things does not help anyone.
No, it's a big danger, right? Yeah. Like having no information, no preparation. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster. As far as like the language and the profanity, like pretty like standard high school fare. There's nothing too atrocious at all covered in this book. Like, I think the real stuff that would maybe be tougher would be some of the talking about some of the sexual kind of scenarios, but again, like, there's nothing overtly graphic, or like a lot of it is innuendo or implied, right? And it's just more the discussion about how that makes a character feel, or that kind of thing, right? That we get the more emotional weight to that rather than anything graphic or overt.
So, yeah, the book is the story of Charlie, who he's 15 years old when the book starts.
A freshman in high school.
And it's a series of letters that he's writing to this sort of unknown person that he's only aware of because he's heard of him as somebody who
didn't sleep with that girl at that party,
even though
he
could have.
Yeah.
And
so that makes him seem like a good person. Someone who might listen.
And that's sort of the framing. That's sort of how it's presented, is these series of letters. And, it's Charlie talking about his experiences among his friends during that year of high school.
Yeah. Some ups and downs during that year.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to sort of break the story down to its most, basic discussion of the arc of it is it's sort of meeting these friends who sort of learn to appreciate him for who he is, almost kind of for the first time.
Yeah.
And then interacting with them, he makes some mistakes at some points. And it's during that period where life does get a little bit more complicated, because it's puberty, it's dating.
Like we said, he's
social groups.
He doesn't have a lot of these social kind of understandings, and so he wades right into with some of his mistakes. He wades right into it and doesn't know how to deal with it. And we see kind of how that affects someone who doesn't maybe understand what they've done wrong or how to fix it.
Yeah, his first dating experience, but he's in love with Sam. Sam is this older girl that he sort of has this.
He's kind of immediately smitten with her, right upon first seeing her, and these are really Patrick, Sam's sister, and Charlie meets Patrick at kind of the homecoming football game or something, and then meets Sam, and they become kind of friends.
A pretty tight group.
Yeah. And so they're seniors in high school, and he's a freshman, but he somehow becomes part of this seniors group, and not the popular kids or anything like that. They're kind of these misfits, but he really kind of fits into this group. And as the title suggests, at first he is kind of this wallflower, right? He's on the outside looking in at this group and just kind of happy to be there. And as he slowly, as they understand who he is and he gets more involved in the group, that's where things start to become a little messier.
That's a good point, actually. I think if we were to talk about sort of what the core arc of the story is, it is this idea of him learning to step away from the wall and participate in his own life.
Yeah.
And the value of doing that, and encouraging, obviously, through the reading of the book, other people to do the same. Don't be the wallflower.
Yeah.
Be an active participant in your own existence, because it's the only one you got.
That's right.
But yeah, he fumbles sort of his first romantic situation with Mary Elizabeth, although it was kind of, I think, fated to fall apart anyway.
He couldn't handle Mary Elizabeth. No, he couldn't get a word in edgewise.
Exactly. So. Mary Elizabeth very much just sort of wanted to be the center of all the attention and talking constantly. And when they were playing some truth and dare, Charlie gets dared to kiss the prettiest girl in the room, and because Charlie's the kind of guy who cannot,
he's got to take it literally.
And he cannot lie. He went and kissed Sam, which of course Mary Elizabeth did not take that very well, and it ultimately spelled the end of their brief dating experience.
Well, the other thing is that Sam and Mary Mary Elizabeth
They were friends
have
too.
some history of within their friendship of guys choosing one over the other, and it was a whole thing. And yeah, Charlie just wound up right in the middle of that. But it does, I think, kind of incite Charlie to kind of, first of all, he gets kind of banished from the group
he does.
for a while. And this, I think, starts him thinking a little bit more about, kind of things in his life that I think later lead to, things not going so great again.
Yeah. I just forgot. Hang on. Oh, we have a crazy lady. Is she still here? No, I think she's left.
We love the crazy ladies.
I realized I didn't have the dashboard up. So now I'm watching the dashboard. So if anyone comes in, we can say hello. If you do come in, you're welcome to give us a call. I'll probably have to say that again because there's nobody here right now to listen to me say that. But please, if you wanna talk about the perks of being a wallflower or any other sort of book bannings or censorship in general, you're welcome to do that. Yeah, back to it.
Yeah. So Charlie, he has some trauma that we don't really understand as the reader until much kind of later in the book,
until nearly the end.
Yeah,
really.
But it kind of starts with this relationship with Mary Elizabeth because they do start to fool around a little.
Yeah, get a little intimate,
and Charlie has mixed feelings about that.
He's reluctant.
Yeah,
and it comes out in a way initially that it's not even Charlie who brings it up initially, I don't think, because it's in conversations between Sam and Charlie when Sam first starts seeing Mary Elizabeth, and Sam is like, just so you know, like if you're not comfortable, because Mary Elizabeth is a lot more experienced than you.
That's right.
And she may want to do some things that maybe you're not comfortable with, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Just make sure that you express that to her, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the case sort of at the start, but then it sort of continues to be the case through things with Mary Elizabeth, even as things kind of heat up. He's still kind of reluctant and, pushing.
Yeah. And I think part of his approach to the relationship is kind of following Sam's advice a little bit too much, maybe. And he's not really himself with Mary Elizabeth, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
He's kind of, again, wallflowering his own relationship to an extent, right? Where he's
taking a back seat.
Yeah, he's there, but he isn't actually participating. He's caring more about not hurting Mary Elizabeth's feelings
than being true to himself.
Really, yeah, exactly. So he's taking a back seat and just kind of coasting through, and doesn't work out because he's hung up on Sam the whole time.
But even towards the end, when he does end up with this opportunity with Sam, he ends up having to put the brakes on that as well.
Yeah. And I think this is really where, and as a reader, like, we don't know about his kind of past trauma with his aunt or anything, but this is where I think we get our first hint of, like, there's more to his trauma than just him being sad about his favorite aunt passing away, because he has this hang up where with Mary Elizabeth, we kind of can put it down to he's not that into her or, something like that. But with Sam, we know how he feels about Sam.
Yeah.
So the fact that he can't kind of be there physically with her gives us an inclination that there's something else wrong here with Charlie, some other kind of trauma or something that, we haven't found out what that is yet.
But as you said, it is in relation to the aunt, who is kind of she's present in the story as someone who's referenced a few times, but really all we kind of know about her is that she killed herself a couple of years before.
Well, she was in a car accident, so we don't.
Oh, I guess that's true.
We don't know if she did it purposely,
right,
or, I mean, she had attempted suicide.
Yeah, and
before,
I guess it's maybe that made me kind of conclude that the car accident might have been an attempt. But you're right.
It's never clarified in the book. Certainly, from Charlie's perspective, he wouldn't know.
Yeah, but it was also that she died when she was going out. She was going out to buy Charlie a birthday present.
Yeah. And his birthday is right around the holidays,
around Christmas.
So it's Christmas, families gathered, and
she was the only one who ever got him sort of separate things for Christmas and his birthday.
Yeah.
And so the story kind of built this sense that that was where the trauma was coming from, this loss of this person who
really understood him,
and saw him.
Yeah. And he, even his family describes Aunt Helen as his favorite, person within the family and all this kind of thing. So we think of it as just this terrible loss, right? And early in the book, we also find out his best friend has committed suicide.
Yeah.
So there's these parallels of like he's lost, his favorite friend and his favorite aunt, and that's where we think some of the the trauma is really related to, is just that sense of loss.
Yeah.
Until we kind of get much later in the book, and he's with Sam, and they're at that point where they're able to kind of overcome the unsaid things from earlier in their relationship as she's getting ready to go away to college.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she's ready to kind of take things to the next level, and he can't do it.
And that leads to him kind of having another sort of major breakdown.
Exactly.
He had been in, a mental hospital earlier, and sort of he ends up, I think, going home, and he just sits staring at a television that's not even on.
Yeah, but he somehow sees a show.
Yeah, and that's how he's found. And he's brought to a hospital, and
basically like catatonic. Essentially in front of the TV. Yeah.
And in working with a therapist at the hospital, it comes out that his aunt had molested him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that
and
was,
he's the youngest child in the family,
yeah.
Right? So
that was a big part of what was impacting his ability to experience intimacy with people, was the trauma from that. And
like the complication of her death at his birthday, on like, and him being young, like it's all kind of conflated.
Yeah.
Right. That there's, this person who abused him, and he's pushing that, but then also he feels this sense of loss.
Right.
And he remembers her as his favorite person, and,
but also likely some gratitude at the abuse being over, maybe too. Like it's
so
obviously a complicated,
some guilt around that. And yeah. So a very complicated kind of thing with his aunt.
Yeah.
So we kind of, and again, it's not ever really explicitly stated in the book. Like it's all very much like, implied or alluded to in terms of, what may or may not have happened.
Yeah.
We definitely get the sense that yes, it happened, but there's nothing overt here of like, she did this and did this to him. And, we're just left to understand that it happened.
Yeah, I think it's very possible to, if you're not really paying attention, to read this book and not even kind of get that. It is so subtle.
Yeah.
I feel like, because I did read this probably 13, 14 years ago, and I feel like I did not get the abuse, the molestation from the aunt at that time. I could be wrong. It's been a while. But
well, especially if you're kind of just reading through this book and going, okay, this kid has had a hard time, he's suffered loss. And the real like kickoff of this last, breakdown is his friends leaving for college. Patrick and Sam and the rest of the group are all going away to school. So he's having another moment of loss, right? So that on its own is powerful enough to, cause him to sink back into this emotional trauma and to have a bit of a breakdown. So I think if you're not paying attention to the subtleties, and, maybe you're kind of speed reading through it, you'd go, oh yeah, like, the Aunt Helen stuff. Yeah. He was sad about that before. And yeah, easy to really skip by.
Yeah.
That she did something else to him that was far worse than we at first kind of learned.
Yeah. And I think maybe in a way it's smart to have done it in this subtle way, because it, in a way, it potentially expands the readership for the book, so that, a younger reader can read the book and, maybe prepare themselves for the kind of experiences that they might have in high school,
Right.
with conversations around the drug use and the alcohol and the less subtle sexual assault.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's still other sexual assault in the book. Like, is that so? Yeah, there's still some of that there to go through.
But it doesn't need to get into conversations about like what happens when you're molested with a family member.
Yeah,
which is maybe a more difficult conversation.
Yeah.
To have at those, maybe those younger years. But then it's still there for the older people, I guess. But we talked about this a little bit last episode, but I did cut that conversation out because it felt better left for this episode. Sure. That if there's one thing in the book that I'm not 100% sure on how I feel about it, it is that Aunt Helen reveal. I kind of feel like the book, it doesn't elevate the book at all. I don't think it makes it any better. I don't know that necessarily makes it worse.
Yeah.
But it just kind of almost feels unnecessary. And that's not to say that those sorts of conversations shouldn't be in, literature or even in young adult literature. I don't know what it brought to the story that wasn't there without it.
So I kind of thought about that too. And especially as we talked about last episode of like, it is subtle and we've mentioned it here. Like it's not overt, but I just, I watched the movie to kind of see, and we'll talk a little bit more about the movie. But one thing that I think I got from the movie around this is that it definitely, I think, compounds the trauma that Charlie is dealing with, right? And I know we already talked about like, he's had some loss, he's had some maybe some guilt around that kind of thing. But I think it just kind of it adds a layer of darkness to what Charlie is dealing with. So, when he is alone or when he talks about the bad things and when he reads the poem to the group and that kind of stuff, is that we get like, I think just another layer of like things that he's had to deal with and repress or what have you, that just kind of add to the positive of having this friend group and moving out of that Wallflower phase and really interacting with him. And because I don't think his friends truly understand how much good they're doing for him.
Right. That's a fair point. Yeah.
And they maybe see him as this kind of weird guy and they're these, misfits themselves, but just the good they're doing in terms of providing almost a support network for Charlie, and not just because his friend killed himself or that kind of thing, because he's dealing with much darker things as well on top of that. I thought it added a little bit in that sense, right? And I think, like you're saying, could the story survive without it? For sure. But I think it does add a little bit to that in terms of a darkness, because it is kind of a, obviously there's some heavy subjects in the book, but it's a fun read.
Yeah.
And the narrative of the diary kind of entries, like it feels very much a friendly conversation as you read through it. And I think adding that little bit of extra darkness there, I think really provides a bit of contrast and dynamism in terms of the ups and downs that Charlie's going through the book. So I can appreciate it that way. And the fact that it is very subtle and just, you kind of have to read into that part of the trauma. Yeah, I think it sits in there relatively nicely. And, if you took it away, the book would still be good, but I do think it adds something.
Yeah, fair enough. It also, I guess it also maybe prevents, people from saying, oh, well, what's his issue? Why is he so fucked up?
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you complaining about? You got all these.
Yeah. What are you whining about?
All these hot ladies around you, and you just can't even.
That's right.
Can't even bother to make out with them. Like, come on, dude.
Come on. What's your problem?
What's your problem?
Get back into that punk Rocky Horror Picture Show cast.
And you did watch the movie.
I did watch the movie.
Unlike a lot of film adaptations, was written and directed. By the guy who wrote the novel, Stephen Chbosky, which is
so. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of another example off the top of my head where both the screenplay and direction were done by the original author.
The only other film that I can think of is The Exorcist 3, which was written and directed by William Peter Blatty, who wrote the novel Legion that movie was based on. But,
it doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't.
I kind of, in my mind, I'm kind of going like, how did the studio, like, how did he
I'm pretty sure
greenlight this project?
This was
crazy.
Chbosky's first book as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But yeah, the movie is very good. Obviously, it kind of compresses a lot of things, within the book. And we definitely get a much more kind of direct route to his pain and trauma and kind of the reveal at the end, which again is not explicit, right? It's very subtle. There's these flashback scenes of him with his aunt that happen very briefly through the movie, and then at the end, after Sam leaves for college, we get this kind of montage of all these scenes of his aunt and of his friends, and it all comes crashing together into this breakdown, and then he wakes up in the hospital. But very interesting kind of movie to watch, knowing that the author had the chance to adapt and change whatever he wanted from the book to the screen and kind of present it that way. An interesting take was there's much less focus on his relationship with his English teacher, whereas in the book it does seem to be kind of this other lifeline that he has, right? He pours himself into these book projects and
exactly.
And we talk about the grades back and forth, with his teacher, and he spends time with his teacher and his girlfriend and all that kind of thing. Whereas in the movie, it's there's, he has a few conversations with his teacher, but there's no discussion about what he's doing with these essays and how they're, how he gives him little grades and things. It's really just a much more simple relationship there. So it feels less of a lifeline within the movie. And there's some other sections where things are just kind of very compressed and left out that I think would maybe add a little bit more in terms of the reveal at the end. So the story around his sister particularly, right, and her relationship, and how Aunt Helen was abused, and how Charlie's dad is very much against that, and why it was such a big deal for his sister to be with this guy. And that's all, like, we see one incident with Charlie's sister and her boyfriend, and then that's kind of it. We don't really talk about that for the rest of the movie. So I thought that one maybe could have been something that should have maybe been in, because we don't really, we don't see Charlie witnessing, the sexual assault when he's in the jacket room, or like any of that other trauma or things that might have, provided some hints as to his trauma that he's dealing with. So
was there anything in the film that you thought was done particularly well, or maybe even handled better than it was in the book? Or
so I mean, the truck scene when they're going through the tunnel, right? Obviously in the book it's described very well, but it's really it's a visual scene,
exactly,
right? Like, how do you present them in the tunnel and the truck, and the feeling infinite, and with Sam in the back. And I thought that was visually really well done. There was a very cool kind of lighted tunnel that they used in the film, a great old pickup truck, and just that scene, I think, really worked very well as this high moment for Charlie. I think that was done very visually well. And then the section in the book where Sam finds out, and Mary Elizabeth's new boyfriend kind of tells them about Craig, and that he's been cheating on Sam the whole time and all that. It was more of a lengthy section in the book, whereas in the film it's a bit of a voiceover, and then Sam is kind of sad, and we don't see that whole process of how Charlie and Sam had to deal with that in the movie. It just kind of skips right by that, which I think at that point in the movie, we're at the stage of Charlie's facing more loss. His friends are going away. And I think it was right to focus more on that and how that spirals into his breakdown, rather than, having this whole section of how Sam had to deal with learning this news, and, the back and forth, and because we already had a section where, he kissed Sam and the truth or dare, and there was trouble in the friend group. Right. So I thought that was, I think, a wise cut, right, was to just streamline that down and then focus on, okay, well, what builds up to the breakdown.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We're going to say hello to Only One God in Heaven, who has joined our studio.
Hello.
If you want to chat about the perks of being a wallflower or censorship in general, you're welcome to give us a call. We are live and we are talking to people if they want to chat. So yeah, you're welcome to. Or you can just chill out and listen to us.
Yeah.
Have our little discussion.
Yeah. So you were able to kind of come in right at the end of me watching this movie before we got onto the podcast here. So again, it he ends up in the hospital, so similar to the book, and it talks about how he kind of recovers himself a little bit, and he has the doctors trying to kind of help him out, and the doctor played by Joan Cusack who shows up right at the end of the movie. And again, it's very much subtle how they talk about what Aunt Helen did, which it's just kind of a one line of one of the hardest days was when the doctor told my parents what Aunt Helen did. And that's it, right? There's no real other reference or anything.
Yeah.
And it just kind of moves on from that. And yeah, again, really subtle. We have to use a lot of context clues and, really pay attention to some of the quick imagery and flashbacks that we've seen in the movie to get there. But yeah, I think for those paying attention, it really starts to make a lot more sense on how he dealt with his relationships with Mary Elizabeth and with Sam when, they kissed and, as on her last night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we talk about maybe the book broadly as far as, do we think it was successful? Do we think what
quick hello to Sam I Am.
I think Sam I Am has already left.
Oh, come and gone. I can only see the joining, so
yeah, we only have 3 listeners right now, and 2 of them are you and me. So
yeah, I mean, I think from a commercial standpoint, this book is still out there, still selling copies, still showing up on banned lists, still getting preemptively withdrawn from school libraries. So, I think, you got to take that as a success.
Yeah.
As we talked about earlier, the fact that you can read through this book and essentially take a lighter path to the end, as well as the darker path. Like those are both kind of options and ways to read.
And bearing in mind that the lighter path is still not particularly light, but it's not as dark.
Yeah, just a shade lighter, right? I think that kind of, like you said, really broadens the readership base or the group of people that would find solace or comfort or what have you from this book. And it is very apropos of high school. Regardless of your high school experience, whether you're, a popular kid or you're a misfit or, have trouble fitting in, this book speaks to a lot of different experiences that you would potentially have, whether it's with drugs or alcohol or parties or not having parties and being away from everyone for weeks, or
liking girls, liking boys.
Exactly. And some of the troubles and pitfalls with, either of those scenarios.
Watching your friends go off to school and leave you behind.
Exactly.
All kinds of things. It covers really like just this year in this guy's life, the ups and downs. And I found myself when I was reading it, relating a lot to Charlie, being reminded of my own experiences in high school and being reminded, and I mentioned this, I think, in our last episode, being reminded of just, when I look back, when I try to remember what high school was like, it's all kind of a blur. I might be able to sort of remember an individual incident here or there, but it's just a reminder that there is so much that happens during that period of time. Like given a year in high school, it's just so many things, heartbreaks and
ups and
victories
downs
and ups and downs and tears and joy. And
they're all the most the most sad or the most happy or because that at that point in your life
it's the most joyful or the most sorrowful experiences you've ever had. Everything is turned up to 11.
And
I think the book really captures that feeling of high school, whether you are somebody on the spectrum like Charlie is or not. I think to some extent we all had moments of great joy or great sadness, and we all struggled to some extent.
And I think the way it's written, that diary style, it makes it feel a lot more intimate, right? Absolutely. In terms of that emotional connection with Charlie and what he's feeling and how he's kind of processing it, even though he maybe doesn't completely give us everything that he's feeling and how hard or happy or what. We do get a really good sense of that, and we get a lot of his kind of internal monologue on that as he writes to us in the book. So it's not just we're not just wallflowers as readers, right?
Yeah.
We are very much participating in Charlie's life in this year in high school. And I think it really captures well and really transports you back to that, regardless of what your experience is. I found myself thinking about things in high school and this party or that party, or oh yeah, I remember when I totally messed up with that girl, and like I see now why that that was dumb, like not at the time though, right? So like I think that's, if we're talking about maybe enduring success of the book, is just the ability to transport you back. And certainly as we all get older and becomes further away and more blurry as to what it was like, being able to look back at this and go, yeah, I remember that first time and doing it wrong, or I remember being the one on the outside, or maybe you identify with Sam or with Bob, depending on your experiences in high school, and just can really transport you back.
Yeah. And I think it does a good job of ending on ultimately a positive, hopeful note that especially what is it? The
bonus chapter,
20th anniversary
bonus, not chapter, I guess, but additional letter.
Yeah. It's like a letter from Charlie all these years later, reinforcing the idea that he survived.
Yeah.
And that you can too.
Yeah, and that it gets better.
It gets better.
Yeah,
and it's worth pushing through.
Yeah,
which I think is an incredibly important message for a lot of people who might be struggling in high school. And it's why I feel that these kind of books are really important for kids to have access to.
Yes, for sure.
To be able to see experiences that they can relate to.
Yeah.
To have that feeling of it's not just me, I'm not alone in this, and that yes, it can get better. It may not feel like it right now, but push through.
Yeah.
Man, it might be hard, but it's worth it.
And it'll get blurry later.
Yeah. Exactly. You'll forget probably the worst of it, hopefully.
Exactly. Not repress, but just
blurry,
naturally blur and haze it out. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's probably of sort of the young adult books that we've covered over the years, it is probably one of my favorites, if not sort of the number one.
And it's just very pertinent, as you said, right? Like young people being able to read this at any stage that they're at in high school, and just being able to put themselves into any of these characters for a minute is super powerful in terms of being able to understand that, like you said, they're not alone, that things get better, and that you can survive almost anything, really, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, I would probably give this 4.5. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to go 5.
Yeah, that I don't, but I never give maybe one day we'll get that elusive 5. But
I think it's definitely up there for me. I'm going to say 4.5. People standing against the wall deciding not to dance out of 5.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'll probably go 4.5 heartfelt typewriters given as gifts out of 5 for this one. I mean, I think like the style of writing, right? Doing that kind of diary style, like the letters to like that connection that, especially for a first book, like it's just a really interesting take on how to invite the readers into this story and into Charlie's life. I just thought it was really neat. It's very well written. It's written in a sense that you immediately start to understand that there is, this kid is on the spectrum in some, way, that he is a little different, that he's struggling, but at the same time, very accessible and very easy to get into the story, which I think is just really kind of brilliant way of writing.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's many people that could do that.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate it in that sense. And as we said, like there's these layers to this book where you can kind of read it more surface level, or you can read it kind of much deeper into the ups and downs of Charlie. And I think that's where it really does kind of elevate from, some of the other young adult books that we've looked at.
Yeah. I haven't read it yet, but I did pick up an ebook of Chbosky's second novel from 2019 called Imaginary Friend, which is a horror novel.
Oh, okay.
And substantially longer. It's 720 pages.
Holy.
So, yeah. Also,
is it banned anyway?
That's a good question. I don't know. We can do that one too.
There's probably not a lot of horror books that get banned per se. Hey.
No.
Like straight up horror.
Not.
Right?
It was though. Yeah. It was banned or restricted in Clay County District Schools, Florida in 2023. The 700 plus page so was scrutinized for its mature content, leading to its placement in the Clay Today District's parental advisory section rather than being universally accessible. So it was just, it looks like it was moved to a different section of the library rather than completely
not
removed.
All right.
But I think, horror, I think, is maybe not often in classrooms or school libraries.
So it's not as challenged or banned. Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of Stephen King stuff ends up in school libraries just because he's such a popular writer.
Yeah. Well,
and some of his stuff does get banned.
The way he approaches the horror is less schlocky, maybe, I guess, or, more, I guess, classy. I don't know how to say it, right? Like it's very, very much maybe more cerebral, right?
Sometimes. Yeah. I mean, there's some absolute trash in there too, but and I say that as a fan. Yeah, so like I said, I enjoyed this book, and I'm eager to maybe see what he did in Imaginary Friend.
Definitely knowing that that's a horror book. It sounds creepy off the bat based on the title.
Is there anything else you want to touch on about the book or our discussion around it, or?
So, I mean, just having watched the movie, I would say that if you don't have time to read the book, watching the movie is definitely a good way to go. It's going to tackle, quite a bit of the material in the book. Obviously, there's a bunch that needs to be left out just for, fitting into a 2-hour movie.
Exactly.
But
it is a pretty short book too.
Yeah, it is. But the film, I think, gives you a really good sense of, that high school experience, Charlie not fitting in, and then finding the friend group, and, the struggles, the ups and downs that he kind of deals with, and, what that leads to in terms of his kind of final breakdown and how he gets through that, which again is being with his friends. And it's visually, a pretty well put together movie. There's some funny dialogue in there, and some good acting and a great cast. And it's just a kind of a good way to get the sense of what, Chbosky was going for with the book. But again, I just want to.
It is also a really short read, so there's really
read.
No reason not to pick it up if you're inclined.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to go back to just the quality of the book itself, right? I know I mentioned it earlier about just that style of bringing the reader in through these letters, and I think that's one of the things when I look at some of the other books that we've read in that young adult, where it's the experience obviously of bringing you back to high school or when you were young and that kind of thing, is usually what writers are going for. But this book really draws you in because it makes you feel like as you're reading it, you're also a high school student living down the block, getting these letters and going, like, who's writing this? Like who is this Charlie fellow? And obviously Charlie's not even his real name.
Yeah.
And really draws you in and makes you feel like you're right there, and like you're maybe in high school yourself, and getting these letters and really trying to understand that, where this kid is coming from, and you kind of want to help,
Yeah.
And so I think that, is one of the things for this book that'll keep it a success for a long time.
And I think ending on those notes of hope as well, which is different from, say, The Chocolate War, which, we covered, I think, last year, maybe the year before, which does not, it's a very bleak ending.
Yeah.
And not that, bleak endings aren't worthy as well.
Right.
But, I think given this story, and again, given the ups and downs that Charlie experiences, I'm grateful that it ends on that note of hope of yes, you can get through this.
Yeah.
It's only temporary. And it's important to remember, and I'm sure, if you're a high schooler that you've heard this, these are probably going to be among the worst years of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't give up.
Don't give up.
It's going to get better. Everything changes after graduation.
Everything changes, but also, it takes some bad experiences to realize how good some of the good experiences are.
That's true too.
So as much as it sucks to have to go through that, it only makes things better long term, right? When you can look back and go, oh man, I used to think that really sucked, or that was the lowest point in my life. And now I just see how far I've come, and how much distance I have, or how that's in kind of the rear view for me. And I've learned so much more about the world and about my place in it, that you'll almost appreciate having gone through that.
Yeah.
Definitely sweeter to once you've experienced the sour.
Okay, I think we can start wrapping things up here.
Yeah. Thanks for the few that were able to join us and listen along. And,
yep.
If you do ever feel like, you have some questions or want to be part of the discussion, we're here.
We do have time for a call. If you do want to call in, only one God in heaven is still there. So, otherwise, you can find 99% of our stuff at blahblahblahmedia.com. You can find podcasts there, all the episodes. You can find links to all of our other stuff, including our merch store, our Buy Us a Coffee link, our Patreon link. The best current place for sort of updates on what's going on is Facebook. I am thinking of moving away from Facebook just because as a platform goes, it's just kind of stinky now.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of gross.
Tough one,
I don't like it. So
still on there because I'm an old white person. But,
I'm on there too because I use it a lot. I shouldn't say use a lot, but I like checking out Marketplace. Sometimes you can still find deals.
That's true.
And I do post the updates on our stuff there, but I might look at adding like a news section to our website that might function just as well. We'll see.
Yeah, and YouTube as well.
Yeah, all of our podcasts are also on YouTube and available through all of your favorite podcast platforms.
That's right.
And you can email us.
Yes.
At badthingshappen@gmail.com.
And we actually will respond.
We will respond. People have sent us books. People have sent us screeners of films.
Mm-hmm.
We even interviewed the producer of one of those films, I think last year.
Yes.
So if you've got something you want us to look at or read, or, if you're an author who's had your book banned and you'd like to bring some attention to it, let us know.
You bet.
We feel pretty strongly about how, and actually, we haven't talked about with this book yet is, where it belongs. And I do think this has a place in high school libraries.
This is definitely a book for high school. Yeah. We've talked so much about the impact of, being able to really write high school experiences well. And especially a book that ends on a positive note, dealing with that and then ending on a positive note. I think that's exactly the kind of thing that kids need in high school, especially if they're dealing with something at the time, to understand what the future looks like or what's beyond that. Definitely high school.
And
material.
I would say too, I would go so far as to say that I think this book could stand to be in like English curriculums.
Yeah.
Have it in the classroom, have it taught, and then have the conversations around it.
Yeah.
Have the conversations around things like, there's that, scene that we kind of, either mentioned or alluded to where, Charlie, when he's younger, is in this bedroom where he oversees, a sexual assault on somebody. And, to have that conversation around, because it kind of happens in the book in a way without any judgment. It's just, it occurs.
Yeah.
And then to be able to have the conversation afterwards of, was that okay?
Yeah.
Was should Charlie have done something? Should the woman who was assaulted, what options did she have?
Yeah.
To look at the book in context and not in a void, I think that could be incredibly valuable. So yeah, kudos to Stephen Chbosky. I think it's a great book, and I think it's a book that should be in schools, should be in classrooms, and should be read and talked about.
Yeah, the book that'll last a long, long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll get another little letter from Charlie 20 years in the future?
I mean, I hope so. I think that'd be kind of neat.
Right? Every 20 years.
Yeah. Every 20 years, kind of have a little bit of an update on how Charlie's
maybe a sequel
doing.
once, he and Sam are in the retirement home together.
That's right. Yeah. The Whispering Pines or whatever retirement home.
Returning to the world of wallflowering or something like that.
That's right. Yeah. Making mixtapes once again.
Okay. Yeah. So thanks everybody for listening. And as I said, blah, blah, blah media, BLAH media is all our stuff. Shoot us an email. Don't.
Should we talk about our next?
Yeah. So
what we're doing next?
Think what we're going to do next is, I think it's called The Diary of a Young Girl, which is, also known as The Diary of Anne Frank. And I'll be honest, part of the reason for that is
it's because we're in diary mode. No,
we are in diary mode. It feels in line with maybe some of what's going on in the US right now, with just what's going on with the ICE agents and sort of specifically what's been going on in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And, as much as we are generally sort of talking about these banned books kind of not specifically in relation to the news, sometimes it's hard not to. We did George Orwell's 1984 before this book, and that was definitely somewhat connected to the Trump presidency. And sort of now seeing what's going on with the ICE agents cracking down on immigrants, this just feels sort of very apropos.
Yeah.
And
it's almost sad that so many of these books that have been around for a long time, that have been studied and looked at and banned for dealing with some of these subjects, are coming back and are almost more relevant now than ever before.
Yeah.
It's a little troubling, but we want to take a look at that and get a glimpse into what life was like during another very difficult time for some people that were being persecuted and hunted and that kind of thing, and try and bring that to everyone out there.
I think we may end up doing a movie before that. We normally do throw a movie in between our books. I don't think we've landed on one to do yet, so that'll be a surprise.
Not specifically, yeah.
Oh yeah, we've got a short list of things we could do, but yeah, we'll sort of cleanse our palate with something short with a movie before jumping into fascism again. And
there's quite a few books out there that fall under that.
And then we're moving pretty quick after that we're going to try to line it up so that we're finishing up. I have wanted for a couple of years to do Fahrenheit 451 for our 100th episode, and we're nearing our 100th episode. Yeah. And so I'm going to see if there's a way that we can schedule things so that the 100th episode is our live wrap up. So it'll be a combination live wrap up and live celebration of 100 episodes of When Bad Things Happen to Good People. So I'll break down. I'm hoping I can figure out the schedule.
I like that Ray Bradbury is Canadian as well.
Is he really?
I'm pretty sure he is.
Didn't know that.
Pretty sure.
I am pretty sure I saw Ray Bradbury once.
Oh, yeah.
At Expo 86.
Oh, nice. I barely remember Expo 86.
All I remember is, he was born in Illinois.
Oh, well, you didn't hear it here first.
But yeah, he was, I think my parents had gone into some movie thing at Expo 86. I can't remember what it was. I didn't want to see it, so I was just hanging out in the lobby. I think I was probably, a moody teenager. And I was like, And I saw this guy come in that looked exactly like Ray Bradbury. And I was like, is that Ray Bradbury? And then he goes up to like the person at the counter and was like, hey, can I get into the screening? And they were like, no, I'm sorry, it started. And he was like, but I'm Ray Bradbury.
Yeah.
And they were like, I'm sorry, it doesn't really matter. And so I'm pretty sure it was because he tried to use his clout to jump the line and get into a screening that was already going on.
Interesting.
It didn't work. X46 didn't give a fuck.
No. Well, that's a World's Fair, so
that's true. Like, you have to be a bit bigger than just some random sci-fi guy that maybe they've heard of. So yeah, here I am talking smack about Ray Bradbury. But anyway,
not where we thought this was going to go today.
But yeah, so hopefully we will be doing Fahrenheit 451 sometime very soon and around the 100th episode.
So yeah, all you firefighters out there,
exactly,
get ready for episode 100.
Exactly. Okay. Any final thoughts?
I mean, great book. You know, I think you hit the nail on the head of saying, you know, this is something that, you know, if you're in high school and having a tough time, you should read this book. It offers a message of hope through layers of, you know, dark things.
Definitely
that
more
happen.
hopeful than the chocolate war.
Yeah,
Stay away from that one if you're having a tough time in high school.
Yeah, and I think everyone can identify at some point with Charlie.
I think so.
You know, he has a lot of unique takes on experiences, but also, you know, he's putting his feelings out there, and anyone can you know, feel some empathy with him, especially if you think back to your own high school days, or if you're in high school now. Yeah, go out and read it. If your library doesn't have it, go find a copy
and tell your library to get it.
Yeah.
Okay, I've been Todd Sullivan.
I've been Peter Ammon.
And until next time,
go read a fucking book.